Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Claude Mark Segraves. We're still waiting for Doreen. As you know, she does the 6 o'clock news. It's not open until 7. That's up at Northwest on Nebraska Avenue.
But in the meantime, if you have questions for Tom, I'm sure there are a lot of people who might have questions for Tom.
We're going to play Double Dog Dare. I'm going to ask a question that he won't answer, and then he'll ask me one that I won't answer. So we're just waiting for her. That's the only thing we're doing. She's aware of getting over here. So if you have any questions that you want to ask us, you're welcome. As long as it doesn't involve Doreen. What would you like? Would you like her to sit in the middle, or would she sit on the end? Don't interfere. When she sits here, you can't. The only problem, you know what happens though when you're the person being interviewed and you have 2 people like this, it's this. It's like a ping pong match. It's not very relaxing. So I think we'll leave her here. back so she falls off the stage. Is this going to be recorded? So if you're wanted or no, but you know, she should be here momentarily. Coming across town, I think traffic in Washington is the #1 issue in town. I think it's horrible.
Really, traffic for you, that's the #1 issue, Tom.
It's killing business.
You've already learned something.
Yes, it's killing business.
Education,
It
crime.
cuts down on social activity.
Healthcare.
Well, there is also important issues, but you can't get to them to address them. Stuck in traffic. I'm not sure I want to be mindful. I got
There
things
you have
to
it,
say.
everything you need to know.
How many years do you drum? How many years do you drum?
Well, you know, in this area, we can't have a drone because of Homeland Security. We're the most un-American place in America.
Vote for a senator.
That's correct.
How many would like to see Tom Sherwood run for office?
You know, most people don't know what I think.
Follow you on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be on the transportation committee, though. Definitely, on the transportation committee.
How would you fix Metro's work?
Well, we have to, you know, it's Maryland and Virginia that won't fix Metro. I mean, they won't do a dedicated funding. Governor McCall said, though, on WAMU radio this last Friday, that he will, in his budget announcement on December the 18th, that he's going to propose Virginia's version of dedicated funding for Metro. So that leaves Governor Hogan to come up with something other than his temporary plan. But you know, in order to make management changes, you have to have money to do it. You can't fix things.
So you're blaming Maryland and Virginia. I just want to get my tweet
Yes.
correct.
Maryland carried their load. So, is anyone here from Maryland or Virginia? No? Doreen does know how to use a cell phone, so. I don't know if our husband.
You have Tom's cell phone?
Yes, I'm going to give it out if she doesn't get it. So speaking of that, if you have a cell phone, this is the one forum where you do not have to turn it off. However, if it rings, you have to stand up and put it on speakerphone so that we can know who's calling.
Who's been here before?
And it's
That same joke every time.
But isn't that better than just, you know, just saying turn off your damn phone?
You guys are taking my job.
This is Eli here, this. He actually gets paid to be here.
Yeah, I'll officially welcome you all to Hill Center now. As Tom said, I'm Eli Campbell. I'm the programming.
Wait a minute, Eli, here she is.
Hi.
Hi.
We started without you. We've been talking about Tom.
I wasn't at all worried about late arrival because I knew you guys would be only too happy to talk.
He was about to give out your cell number.
Or you're on the speakerphone.
So quickly before we do get going, I just want to make sure that you guys know you have samplers of upcoming programs at Hill Center on your chairs. Please check those out. Let us know if you have any questions. And I also want to thank the Capitol Hill Community Foundation, without whom we wouldn't be able to offer excellent free programming like this. And it's my pleasure to introduce Tom Sherwood, Mark Segraves, and Doreen Gentzler.
I wasn't listening. Did he say this is being recorded?
Well, there's a camera over there.
I know.
We're wearing microphones.
It's being streamed. Well, some people don't know. You have to give them fair warning. And are we going to have questions from the audience?
We are, right? Cards? They're
Yeah, there are cards on the chairs, yeah.
Right,
Because
so
I just have to talk to you guys.
Those are,
You know, it's going to be a very
those are
long
Those are 5x8 cards. They're not. You don't have to fill them up. All right. Good.
but they will.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Tom Sherwood, Mark Segraves from Channel 4. Our guest, Doreen Gentzler. Thank you for coming tonight, and thank you, Doreen, for coming. I know you just got off the air, and you have to be back on the air tonight, right? How did you get here?
with Eddie Durkin, the courier.
The courier. He went
Fast
for it.
Eddie, we call him.
Fast
Fast
Eddie.
Eddie.
Eddie the vegetarian.
Yes, he eats only food that looks like it's already been eaten. Is he waiting for you to take
No, I don't think he is.
Is he gonna come back and get you?
I have him on speed dial if things get too, if you guys get too unruly.
All right, this is our,
Dial him right up.
okay. Well, this is our latest in an irregular series of talking to people that you know about, see, heard about, to find out who they are, not what they do, but who they are. And Doreen very kindly agreed to come. We've had a long list of people, Chief Lanier and others.
No one's ever been back.
No. That's right.
And she left town,
That's
was
right,
that right
that's
after you guys?
But we do, Mark and I do hope to give you a sense of who they are. They are real people behind the jobs that they hold. And so we're going to take your questions, if you would write them very simply. Pass them up, and Mark will decide whether he wants to ask them later in the program. It will not be an hour and a half long, because she does have to get back to work. And I've already mentioned the cell phones. I told them they didn't have to turn them off. But they ring,
Put them on silent?
no, they have to stand up and put them on speaker.
Okay, that's good.
So we're going to get through your whole life, Doreen. This is your life.
Listen, I'm feeling very nervous about this, I gotta tell you. Everybody in the newsroom who I said, who heard about that I was coming to do this, what? What made you agree to that? If you should have checked with me first. This is Matt Glassman, our assistant news director. I would have told you not to do that.
That's right. Well, I just want to remind, as you already have done, there are people way over there and over there, so if you can occasionally make them feel like they're here.
Yes.
But that's good. So we're going to talk about your whole life, but I just want to start first with that you graduated from the University of Georgia in 1979 with a journalism degree.
You have to give the year.
Yes. What was the lawmakers? She doesn't know any of these questions.
Okay, he's going way back. My senior year of college, I was a broadcast journalism major at the University of Georgia, which has a pretty large journalism school. And the Lawmakers was a program on PBS in Atlanta. And they hired college interns to cover the Georgia State Legislature. And I interned with, one of my classmates was Debbie Norville, who briefly did the Today Show and now does Inside Edition. And it was a good experience covering the Georgia legislature.
Your first job?
My first job, yeah.
Did they pay you back then when they interns?
No, interns
So it really
were
wasn't a
then
job.
unpaid. It wasn't a real job, yeah. But it was a little bit of experience covering real legislative issues and standing in front of the TV camera and trying to talk.
And why journalism?
Well, I was in high school about the time that Woodward and Bernstein were making journalism cool, and from elementary school, I went to elementary school in Arlington and had some wonderful teachers who encouraged my writing skills, and so I grew up thinking, well, that's my thing. So I wasn't very good at a lot of other subjects, but so writing and being kind of curious and nosy and also bossy, journalism seemed like the right fit.
I did try to get from the General Assembly in Atlanta pictures from the Georgia
Oh, that would be so
public
unfortunate.
broadcast.
I'm sure that
You'd be happy to know I failed.
and I'm sure that that stuff was probably on like 2-inch wide videotape that has all been destroyed many years ago.
May not be able to be
Thank
play.
God.
I think they're cave drawings.
Uh-huh.
Now, you've had a very interesting life so far, and we're going to get to it. But we can't have an event here with you here. We talk about your family, your broken arm in France.
Italy,
I think-
shoulder.
Close enough.
Fake news.
Some opinions was disrupted. But I thought we ought to, so that we're not hang over, and that we would know, people would feel this. You've had a very difficult year. We all have had a challenge.
Yes.
With the death of Jim Vance. So before we get further into your career, we think we should give you a moment for this audience to tell them just a little about why it was so important and how it felt for Jim Vance to be his partner for 28 years and then to have him die.
Well, you wouldn't be here if you didn't already know that Vance was a pretty special guy. And I didn't realize 28 years ago how lucky I was to get to be a part of that team with Vance and George Michael and Bob Ryan. It was, we just had so much fun working together. Four people who I think kind of bonded over mutual respect for each other's skills. And everybody had a sense of humor, everybody cared about the work we were doing and took our responsibility very seriously, but we were all strong enough, comfortable enough with our jobs and ourselves to be able to really tease each other and have fun together. And I think I appreciate what a rare experience that was and what an opportunity that was. Vance and I could not have been any more different in so many ways. He liked motorcycles and fishing and hunting. We are of different generations, and some of his attitudes about women, about just a lot of things. We differed and we argued and we bickered all the time, but we shared, I think, some of the same values about people and about loyalty and doing the right thing, and we both took our responsibility at work pretty darn seriously. And it was a tough summer and an unexpected. We knew that Vance was ill, but it was a pretty short period of time between when he shared that with us and when he was gone. And it has been tough on all of us at Channel 4. He was, I don't know what's the term. He was our rock, our leader. He was the mediator when there would be disagreements. People would go to him. Vance, can you talk to the boss? We just won't.
He called BS when he saw it.
Yes, he did. He did. It was very authentic. And so it was a tough day when we got the news, and a lot of us, most everybody came into work that Saturday. It was a Saturday, and it was everybody crying, but everybody just feeling really strongly that it was really important to us to make sure that he was remembered appropriately in all of the facets of his personality, and not just a great journalist and a leading role model for black journalists and African Americans in general in our community, but also that he was, his daughter came on with us and said he was very tender. And I would agree with that. He was.
And this is one of the aspects of journalism, being on television. The story moves you so much, you still have to go on the air. And you told me, you may not even remember, you told me that Vance had told you that when George Michael died, it was very difficult for him to go on the air and to assume the position of the anchor and tell the story about his friend George Michael who had died. You had to do the same thing.
Well, and that's how I got through that day, knowing that Vance did that for George. I was going to make sure I did that for everyone else.
thank you very much. I think, Vance was here, but he was on this program.
Yeah, you said.
And he said very nice things about you. He respected working with you and so and everything he said.
Well, I really respected working with him and learned so much from him. What a blessing.
All right, now. Turn the page.
Okay.
This next question comes from Venice, Italy.
Okay.
Just received it this week. So writers Nancy and Jean want to know where you got your wanderlust to travel to so many places. And do you really go biking on those many trips with your husband and your children, son Chris and daughter Carson? Is it really to make Bill exercise? And did you really break your arm in France? Apparently we don't, that's not true. It wasn't your arm, it was your shoulder and some other.
In Italy.
So I don't, it's the media.
Writer Nancy and Jean got their facts just a little bit off, but we love them all the same.
They're old friends of hers and mine friends. Suppose they're in Venice, they can only go to Venice for a month at a time, twice a year. Very, very bad retirement life. But they say you're bike sisters, and you really do bike on all these places you go.
We do, yes. That's something that we started, let me think, maybe 20 years ago. We started doing with a company, we've gone with a couple of different companies. There was an outfit called Backroads. It's perfect vacation for us. They do all the planning, and you show up, and they provide the bikes, and they schlep your bags. And if we tried to do it ourselves, we would never get to see and do the same kind of things. But we've been all a lot of different places in the U.S. and in Europe. And the bike accident was a trip to Italy. It was the beginning of a 2-week bike trip, and I thought I was kind of a hot shot, and I was, the pedals that you clip in. Yeah, well, I'm not going to use those anymore after that. I went up a big hill in Tuscany, trying to prove something. I don't know why, and I got to the top and took a wrong turn and couldn't correct fast enough and couldn't get my feet out of the pedals and went over and dislocated my shoulder. Yeah, so that wasn't good. I experienced the pronto soccorso in the emergency room in Italy, and they don't move at the same pace as ours. And they don't really understand about ice either. In Europe, how you can't find ice. Oh my God, I sat there for hours in that emergency room, no ice. Oh. But I hung in for the rest of the 2-week trip. It was a 2-week-long trip. I didn't get to bike. The guides would drop me off somewhere to go shopping or gallery or something like that, and I did do a lot of shopping.
So Tom delved into your college years, but let's go back before then.
Yeah.
You grew up, unlike many of us, with Nazis marching down your neighborhood streets.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And not a lot of people know that the American Nazi Party was founded right here in Northern Virginia, and they had their headquarters how close to your neighborhood?
Like within half a mile, like
And
in my neighborhood.
They would often have marches.
I didn't know that. I had no idea I was a kid.
And they at one point kidnapped a boy off the street and held him hostage, or not hostage,
No
but
one told me that as a child.
interrogated him. But we did a story about this recently,
Yes.
And you were like, "This was my neighborhood."
Yeah, true.
So tell us about your neighborhood.
So see, these are things I did not know about my own neighborhood. I grew up in North Arlington, Dominion Hills, not far from Westover. I guess it's still called Westover, and Westover in one direction, Seven Corners area in the other direction. When I was a kid, you used to be able to go off on your own, ride your bike, hang out all day, and just show back up for dinner. And that was that little shopping center where Rockwell was shot when I was a kid, was in my radius that I was allowed to ride my bike to. And it was kind of shocking as a kid. I guess I was in fourth grade, third grade, something like that, but we were very aware that someone got assassinated a few blocks from our home. But I don't remember, my parents weren't talking to me about, probably this kind of stuff I would tell my kids today, right? Well, you can't, someone got kidnapped off the street and interrogated and you can't go out. None of that. We had none of that.
How much, let me ask you, as a parent also who covers
Yeah.
really awesome stories of death and
Right.
destruction every single day, how does that factor into parenting? When you go home every day and you're like, oh, a 16-year-old kid was kidnapped or was killed, and you go home to your 16-year-old kid or whatnot, are you able to separate that? Or
No, are you?
it's tough.
I mean, my kids have had every time there's a story about a faulty car seat or from the time they were little all the way on up to last week. I guess, was it last week or the week before, the Uber driver assaulting that. So my daughter is a 23-year-old student at American University. That kid just scared the daylights out of her. When you get in an Uber, do you always check? Do you always check, does the license plate match? Do you check the person's face? Do you know that there's a feature on Uber that you can text text somebody, you can tell them right that you're in the Uber and what Uber you're in and everything? Well, let's look at it, let's check. That's when she's 23 and I do that. So
She must love that.
I have two kids, a 23-year-old daughter who's a senior at AU and a 26-year-old son who graduated from college a while ago and has just started a grad school program. He's at Yale. He's a business guy, the only business person in the family. But no, both of them are used to. In fact, they're used to both of their parents. I'm not the only
I'm
person.
glad you brought that up. Because, we were going to dance around it all night long. But to round out, did you want to go down?
No, I just want to make sure you include those people in your facial expression. I feel sorry for the people on the edges. They just...
I'm aiming it out as much as I can.
Okay, anyway, yes.
But to round out the family unit, there's a husband,
There is.
a father figure.
I thought he would have brought you tonight to rush the stage
Well,
if necessary.
He got tied up at work.
Did you run this by him? I don't think you did.
What?
Doing
Like
this
I said?
appearance.
I'm doing.
Oh,
Nor should she.
Because his boss did this once. So,
Yes,
so Bill Miller.
Bill Miller.
Worked at the Washington Post.
So I married another journalist, but a newspaper journalist. 31 years ago, both of us were working. He was from Cleveland, and I was working in Cleveland. And he'd spent his whole life in Cleveland until he hooked up with me, and now Washington is home for him. He worked at newspapers for most of his career. Was at the Washington Post for 18 years, and left the Post
2011?
2011.
Or in my notes,
6
but
years ago.
I do with a broken arm, so I'm not sure.
Anyway, the Post, very familiar with some of the turmoil and the turbulent years at the Post. He took a buyout eventually and is now the spokesman for the U.S. Attorney. And so our kids have heard, they've heard his journalist perspective, just like mine for many years, but now they get, he gets the crime updates all in his cell phone for all the neighborhoods. So, our kids get texts about, just had a, someone's living in DuPont Circle, just had a hold up at 17th and P. So they're both, they have suffered through our children.
Well, he went with you when you went to Philadelphia and
Yes. He got the first job in Philadelphia. We were in Cleveland, got married. It was time. Both of us were ready to make a career move, and that is very hard to do when you have two journalists trying to go to the same bigger city than Cleveland. And he got a job at the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Great newspaper.
Really, and then it really was a great newspaper.
Oh, did you hear that? She said, did you hear that?
Well,
We'll get into the media business later.
And I got a job at the then CBS in Philadelphia, anchoring weekends, I guess.
Before we get back to your career, I want to ask about two other people from the Arlington experience. Rita O'Flynn,
Yes.
your mother.
Uh-huh.
Someone said she was a federal worker.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she was more than that. She worked for the National Security Council at the White House.
Oh, yes.
Did you ever learn any secrets?
She did. I did. Like
What can you tell us about her?
Well, she was there. She was at the NSC at the same time as Ollie North and Fawn Hall. That was kind of busy. I didn't really hear any good stuff. You know. My mother thought Fawn Hall was very nice. She was an administrative type person, so she wasn't blabbing.
Did you go to the White House when you were little?
I went to the White House as a young adult, as her guest at White House Christmas party, something like that.
Ferris.
Yeah.
Who's Ferris?
Ferris was my father. He passed away about 6 years ago. He grew up in Colorado and California, and moved. He and a college buddy decided to move east because they thought there'd be more action here. They went to New York, and they drove to New York. They got on a one-way street going the wrong way, and they said, New York is not for us. So that's how he ended up in Washington. Yes, he sold, I think he sold, first he sold office machines, and then he sold life insurance. And he was also a singer, and got paid to sing in operas, and got paid to sing, and I have none of his vocal skills, but he was a performer in a lot of ways.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Well, my spies in Italy say you also have two brothers.
I do.
Are they in the area?
No, they.
Just a little briefly about them.
Okay, they used to live in the area. I'm the oldest of three. I'm the bossy older sister, and my brothers are
John and Bill.
John and Bill. They're very close in age. My mother and had children one right after the other. And they both live in South Carolina. They're in the Myrtle Beach area. One brother is a plumber and has.
I have him down as an electrician.
I think everyone in this room is going to watch Tom Sherwood's.
I know. President Trump is right. What does Bill do?
Bill cleans
John's
carpets.
the electrician plumber.
He cleans carpets.
Okay. And he was a disc jockey.
He was a disc jockey. It's true.
Segraves is interesting.
Yeah.
Sure.
He was a disc jockey, like if you were having a party and you hired a disc
Right.
jockey. Yeah.
That's what you do, Doreen, is disc jockey.
Okay, no, there's disc jockeys on the radio.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you,
I was
Mark.
going to do this. Would you like to take over the question?
Really, somebody needs to.
Okay. I yield to you. I have a few more written down.
So,
You really
got a lot
get
going
prepared
on.
for this. Yeah.
I,
Okay.
wait till we get to your bank account.
well, she's got one kid in Yale.
That's
another
right.
one at
What does that tell
graduate
you?
degree. So tell us about, both being a woman in this industry now and when you came into it.
Mhm.
you know, we talked to Vance a lot about, you know, his journey and you know, leadership as an African American in this industry. What was it like, you know, as a young woman coming up in this industry, which is so good to women?
So.
You're being recorded.
Yeah, got it. So a lot has changed since I got into, I went to work in television news in 1979, and there weren't so many women on TV back then. Barbara Walters, Jessica Savage was someone I looked up to at the time. You know, all the recent news coverage and attention about sexual misconduct, and you know, I don't have a story of the kind that we've seen, that we've been hearing about. I don't have a boss somewhere in the past who you know, tried to put the moves on me or anything like that. I do think that there were lots of, you know, times in my career when I felt kind of dismissed or not taken seriously, and that I think is a common experience. My first it was a different. They didn't have they had an anchor man. My first job out of college was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I wasn't there for very long. I was a reporter. What is now called a multimedia journalist, but back then it was called a one-man band. And that meant you carried the gear and you know, set the camera up on the tripod and ran around in front of it and stuff like that.
Which is what we're headed to now.
Yes, which we're going back to that, right, because
yes.
it's cheaper. But let me tell you, the gear is a lot lighter than it was in 1979 with the big old TK-76 camera and the other big box with the recording equipment. Anyway, I was told when I was in Chattanooga, I wanted to be a reporter, and that's what I was doing in Chattanooga. And I was looking for another job to move on because that was kind of a bad situation there, and a guy, news director in Charlotte, liked my reporting skills. He said, would you be willing to take a crack at, I need a weekend anchor. And, okay. From there, about a year later, they wanted, they had no female anchors. I was the weekend, and during the week it was all men. Well, you know, they were expanding their newscast to an hour, and they wanted to add a co-anchor, and the women were the only people they were considering. So, you know, I benefited from that situation on the one hand, but on the other hand, the anchor man always read the lead story. I read the second story, or maybe the third story. So, so that doesn't happen anymore. You know, I mean, so a lot of things have changed, and I have, I've been in a lot of situations where they assigned a particular kind of story to the woman. You know, the Queen of Jordan is made an availability of an interview. Doreen. I mean, that kind of thing happens all the time. But
and it still happens to some degree. I mean, newsrooms often are still male dominated in
Yes.
many respects.
Yes.
We've had at Channel 4 over the years several women who have been news directors,
Yes.
a couple of general managers,
Yes.
and have one now.
Yeah.
Good. But it still is a stretch. I mean, you talk
An awesome general manager. Awesome.
this contract is up. But it is hard. I mean, there were times in the journalism in the early 80s, I was in that same period, you know, where women were not hired and were not asked even what to do. They were
Right.
assigned to society pages of the newspaper, as you just said, the interview with the Queen. What does it feel like now with all this national news we have? That we, you said you didn't have a personal experience, but everybody I know who's been in the business knows that. Are we at a turning point now, or is this just going to fade?
I hope so. I hope so.
I'm worried that this will just, things come and go so quickly, and then we'll just go back the way we were.
Well, this one's been going strong for about,
a year.
since, yeah, but go back to Bill Cosby. This has been building since then. This is very exciting to me to watch. It's way overdue, and I am so proud of the women who've been stepping forward, and it's terrifying for them. I think this is more than a moment. I feel like this is a movement, and people are, it's not just people paying off lawsuits now and settlements and getting women to be quiet. They're losing their everything. They're losing their livelihoods, their jobs, their reputation. It's hard to understand how this can be happening, and we have a president who's accused of the same things, and yet he's still the president, while other people are losing their whole everything. But I do feel like this to me, my reaction, this is exciting to watch, and it's long overdue, and I believe it's more than just a moment. I think
we're nowhere near the end of it. Let's talk about.
We're getting on time. If you guys have cards, if you want to either pass them up, if you've written a question, or Eli, is there somebody who will collect the cards, or
Someone volunteer?
Somebody in the back just volunteered. So if you want to just hold your cards up, someone will come and get them, and then we'll ignore them.
And then the other thing is, weren't you guys who live on Capitol Hill, weren't you surprised, or maybe you weren't surprised like so many of the rest of us were, at the rules for reporting a sexual harassment claim on the Hill?
Yeah.
You have to wait 30 days, you have to agree to mediation. I can't remember all the details, but I just fell on my chair.
I don't think any one woman wrote those rules.
And and none of the accused settlements were paid out of tax dollars, and none of the accused were ever outed in any way. It's unbelievable.
The only issue for me on that is that the women who themselves are the victims do have a choice of whether to make themselves public. As you said, it's very brave for people to come forward now, because in that environment, if you came forward, your whole career would be ruined, your families could be ruined. So somehow the rules have to be changed so that people who are victims are not victimized again. So we've gone through this with sexual assault and all manner of treatment of women.
But how is it possible that the people who are making our laws aren't following the same rules that everybody in corporate America follows?
Welcome to Capitol Hill.
Congress is exempt from most laws.
That's my question for you.
It's not just this. Congress is exempt from most laws that did that. So, but here's a question from the audience. If you had an opportunity to interview President Trump, what's one question you'd ask him?
What is wrong with you?
Let's say you've got another couple of quick questions.
You like this?
So regardless of what you think about his politics, what is wrong with you applies to what is with the tweets, what is with the disrespect, what is with the disrespect for people and the office that you're serving in, and the I'll stop right there. That's enough.
One of the questions is about your interest in health reporting. This is your specialty at Channel 4 that you've been doing for some time.
Yes.
Why? What sparked that interest?
And that was the question I was going to get to. That's because we have something called Changing Minds at Channel 4, which we've done since I think 2014.
Yes.
And it's about mental health, bringing it out of the shadows. That and the Health and Fitness Expo that we've done, that you're the face of for every. So back to his question on health. On this issue.
Health is a subject that is endlessly interesting. There's always something new going on, and it affects all of us. And I'm just find a lot of the new discoveries and things fascinating. The Changing Minds project actually came from an idea from our news director, and he was very surprised when I said, "Oh yeah, let's do that." We were going to do this Mental Health Month 3 years ago, May. He had read a column in the New York Times or something, and I said, "Oh yeah, sure, let's do that." We're going to do 5 days of reporting, and he took it to other people in the station, and everybody's, "Oh yeah." Not just news people, but the sales department, the marketing people, the public affairs people. It turned into a whole thing, and so that it went from being a week of stories to a month of stories to let's just keep it going. And I had the absolute blessing of being able to cover a lot of really interesting stories in my time in television news. But I feel like this is the thing that I've covered that has the most impact on me and on people. I think that, just getting people to talk about this and raise questions about the lack of access to treatment, the lack of health insurance coverage being adequate, the lack of providers, the lack of answers for so many people, and mental health, as you know, is an underlying issue in so many of the other crime and so many of the other issues that we deal with.
Well, how did you? One of the interviews you did is when Jim Vance sat down with you to talk about depression, because it's the unseen force that destroys so many lives or limits so many lives. How did that come about?
Well, we had, we had talked about interviewing somebody else, another public figure,
Right.
about depression.
You almost did it, but didn't pull back.
And not sure how it all evolved, but he offered, and said, "Are you sure? Sure you want to do that?" Because that's what you would say to your good friend and work colleague. "You sure you want to go there?" "Yes." And he shared a lot of personal stuff about his drug addiction issues and over the years, and so he offered, and off we went. No restrictions. Don't ask me about this. Don't go there. I think he didn't. I think he wanted to keep his kids out. But that was the end.
In heart. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say what a huge impact he made by doing that. If Jim Vance can go on TV and talk about his struggle with depression and his seeking help, and he talked about just sobbing, just crying in the office with the psychiatrist, and going many sessions with the psychiatrist to try to deal with these issues that he had. And if you can go on TV and talk about this, my God, there's a lot of other people, and we heard from a lot of people who really appreciated his sharing.
The Health and Fitness Expo, we've done it for 2 decades now.
We're coming up on 20.
Has anyone ever been to the Health and Fitness Expo at the Convention Center? Kind of an interesting thing to do. Does health and fitness play that much of a role in your own life to stay healthy and fit? I mean, other than bike riding and breaking your shoulder. It's a very,
Yeah.
you just described a very stressful job to be an anchor. It's not the glory idea where you see anchors just sit there and read the news, which I'm sure drives you crazy when someone says that. You do have a whipsaw of emotions that come at you for an unending hour and sometimes longer. So what do you do other than taking trips? Do you go over biking where they carry your bags for you? What do you do in town to relax and be Doreen Gentzler?
Yeah, it's very possible to bike in town without anyone carrying my bag. I take spin classes. I used to run. I run a little bit now, but not as much as I used to. I've done the Marine Corps Marathon a couple of times, slowly. I play tennis a couple times a week, which is as much social as it is workout. That's very good for mental health. I do some of that stuff in the gym, some weight training stuff, weightlifting. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, that's
That's
enough.
enough. Yeah. I
Here's
feel
another-
better when I'm active.
Here's another audience question, and I would just say this is a question that I asked Vance for a piece that ran in Washingtonian Magazine, and his answer didn't go well for either of us, and so I would just again preface this by saying, this is an audience question. Good luck. How would you characterize the state of local news and the future of local news?
Well, I think it's evolving. I think it is evolving. There's so many changes. You talk about the changes since in the way women are treated. Over 30 some years that I've been in television news, so much has changed. We used to, go to city council meetings and come back and put that on the news. Now.
Well, some things haven't changed.
Yeah. So now it's all so much about online. There's no the 6 o'clock news, the 11 o'clock news, the morning news. It's all one giant deadline, nonstop, 24/7. Our audience is shrinking significantly. People are getting their news online. And it has dramatically changed the way that we do our jobs. It's a lot harder to do the work that we do now. We're having to think a lot harder and be more creative. How can we cover this on News 4 in a way that is different than what you can find online? That's a struggle that we deal with every day. Am I right?
Yeah, there's a certain amount of soap opera aspect that where we are told often to look for the emotion of the story as opposed to the facts of the story. That someone can Google the facts, but they can't Google the tearful person or the missing child or something like that. And that undermines the ability to tell the larger story because they're just telling a little emotional story.
Well, I think we still tell the larger story. So that's a current thing that we're hearing in our newsroom is to show the emotion. I've been doing this 38 years. I've learned that changes. That's what they want you to do. They hire consultants. And they come in and say, oh, you have to do more of this. We want to see more interaction with the people on the set and more emotion in the stories and all of that. But a year ago, they were telling us, get to it, get right to it. No chatting, no fooling around. People need what they want, as much news as they possibly can get in the shortest amount of time, so move it. No, you're not going to say your names at the top of the broadcast anymore. We don't have time for that. We're going to go. Right?
Right, and you're not moving around as much. You used to move over to there was we have 3 or 4 different spots in the studio where you can stand and report the news. And I'm surprised you didn't wear roller skates. Well. You'd be there, then you'd be there. Now they're telling you sit there, look serious.
It's cyclical. It's trendy. It evolves. But what do I think about the state TV news right now is evolving, and some ways that it's evolving are good, and we're trying to work smarter, and we're trying to bring angles to stories that I don't think were getting covered before. What about the emphasis on investigative reporting? Man, that was completely gone. Completely gone. Everybody got rid of all their investigative reporters for years. And now everybody and their brother-in-law has an I team, right? I mean, some of it's show, and some of it's, you know, kind of silly, but some of it is real investigative reporting. And you know, how can you say that's a bad thing? That's a good thing.
Tell us about your work day. Again, the image is you come in, you look nice, and you read the news, and you go home.
That's pretty much, yeah, that's my life.
But you do come in the afternoon, in the mid-afternoon, and at some point, the 6 o'clock producer, there's a producer for the 4, 5, and 6, and there's different producers for each of the shows. They work together, but each person puts the show together. For the 6 o'clock producer,
You know they're not called producers.
I don't care what they call them. I think they are. That's more
Content managers.
content,
or something.
platform managers. They sound like they work in a warehouse. But Patricia Fantis is yours, mostly the 6 o'clock producer.
Yes.
And she comes over, she's putting the show together based on talking with all the other producers.
Yes.
But at some point in the afternoon, she comes over and she talks to you. What's that conversation? Is it just about pacing? Is it about the stories? How much input do you have on the show?
Well, I'm lucky. I get to work, I think, with the two best show producers or platform managers or whatever they are. On the 6 and the 11 o'clock news are two of the smartest people
Adam Jacobs.
in our, yes, and Patricia Fantis in our newsroom. And so when Patricia and I are talking, she's already been through, I come in the afternoon, she's been through the whole day of stories that evolved and changed, and so she's going over the rundown with me. Here's what we've put together, and here's, you know, this reporter has got this angle on the story, and she's just giving me the flow of the broadcast. Sometimes there are live interviews that we have in a broadcast, and she'll say, you know, who that is, and here's some information, background information for you to look at before you talk to this person. That kind of thing. And do I have input? Yes, I have input.
And breaking news is really breaking news sometimes. I mean, you
Yes.
really are, when people hand you those papers, they really are handing you breaking news.
Yes.
It's not all
Yes.
manufactured in advance.
Yes, so much of what we, so much of the copy we get, we're getting just moments before we read it, because it's just changing all the time, and the 4 o'clock and the 5 o'clock are ahead of the 6 o'clock broadcast, and, you know, we're constantly updating things, so you do have to stay on your toes and know what's in your broadcast. It's not just, there's more than just sitting down and reading the teleprompter.
One of the audience wanted to ask, what do you do between 6 and 11? Between 6 and
Well,
11.
here I am. This is it. On another night, I might be, I live not too far from the TV station, and so I might often get a chance to go home and have dinner. Used to get to go home and have dinner with my kids and my husband, but now there's no kids around, so it's just he and I get to have dinner.
And you do a lot of public events.
I do.
I tell people that if you were so inclined, you could do 2 or even 3 if you wanted to public events every day of the week, 7 days a week, no off time. Do you reserve time for yourself, like a Sunday where you say, I will not do anything on that Sunday, where you just
Yes,
say no?
I do. I am very choosy about. I mean, that's how I've selected this group. No, you have to be, or you're right. You could be doing stuff all the time, and you have to balance. I don't go do the talks where they say, "Will you please come and talk to our group about how you balance your work and your family life?" because I never feel like I have balance. And so I'm not gonna go talk to anybody about it, because I don't have it.
Let's put you back out in the field. You went to Puerto Rico, I think, didn't you?
I
after
did,
the
yeah,
hurricane?
yes.
And you've been to Ecuador and Bosnia and Persian Gulf and the USS Comfort. But Puerto Rico is a major still an issue because,
Oh my gosh,
you know,
that is.
it's an island surrounded by a lot of water. It's but you know, it's still there. I mean, the power system is still bad by the hundreds of thousands of leaving Puerto Rico. What was it like when there, as an example, when you go to places where you're seeing suffering and trouble? It's not the Olympics would be fun to do. You're there and you're seeing real suffering. What type of day is that for you?
A long one. You know, when you do a travel assignment, you start very early in the morning and you're usually not done until late in the evening. The producer who planned that little adventure to Puerto Rico is sitting right back there.
Did anybody want to ask Christina any questions?
Christina, how we doing up here? Okay. But it's important. I mean, you're there, you have to make the logistics, and do you speak a foreign language?
No,
Christina?
yes.
Okay. There's some help
It's
there.
very handy to travel with someone who does.
Okay. Great. Is that your?
I wish I did.
You were was Bosnia? Was that during the violence?
It was just after.
Just after.
Yeah.
Ecuador? What was that for?
That was a cardiology team from Children's Hospital went down there to do surgeries on very poor, very struggling children.
That's a
And that
good
was-
part of your job. Then you get to see something. You get to be part of something that's really good.
Yes, but in a situation like that, and also on the Navy hospital ship the Comfort in the Persian Gulf, they wound up treating a lot of Iraqi casualties. You have a real sense of, this is wonderful that these people are being helped, but you know that there's so many more who are not getting access to help. That's kind of a painful thing. I also got to go to Israel twice.
Oh, it wasn't in my notes.
Nazi, well, because it was before I came to DC. It was when I was in Cleveland. Covered a Nazi war crimes trial for the applications. John Demjanjuk. He was an auto worker in Cleveland.
Oh, yeah.
Put him on trial in Israel. That was
Was that for the Cleveland station, or I don't know if there was a network?
that was for all the
All the-
NBC stations, and that was a challenge. A lot of the Israeli judicial system was challenging to figure out. The witnesses talking about the things that had happened 40 years earlier. It was yes, yeah, it was.
Was this as bad as you thought it was going to be?
No, I was ready.
What did you
I
think
was
you were
ready
going
to give you guys
What were
a
you
hard
worried
time.
that we were going to ask you?
How many times have you used that before, Tom?
I'm
I'm not falling for that. How many people in Washington would hate to have a surprise visit from one of these two? But they really are pretty good guys, and they're both excellent reporters. And they both have a reputation in the newsroom.
Being grumpy?
Questioning. Oh yeah, questioning authority.
That's all the time we have tonight.
Yeah.
No, but if you don't-
They both have timeout chairs in
That's
there.
right.
The only two people in the newsroom who have timeout chairs with their names on them.
Actually, it's our pictures.
I tell journalism students, I always ask them, class of journalism students, I say, who wants to be in the news business? And what's that? Me. And then I say, who heard the word business? None of them heard the word business. I always say, and Mark does this, you do not leave your journalism credentials at the door. you ask why, our news director's not in the morning meeting. I said, where's the news director? We're having the news director's meeting about the news. Where the hell is he? So I think that's a good thing for journalism, because otherwise we become like an insurance office where we're just processing paper.
Okay.
And it gets blue towards the end.
Let's see, so you have a series of anchors who are appearing. Jim Hanley appears with you, right?
Jim Hanley and I work together at every night at 11.
At 11.
Yes.
And
But there have been different people are
Aaron Gilchrist
working at 6. Yes.
How come Tom and I have never been asked to share that desk?
Have you asked?
Asking right now.
I actually cannot read the teleprompter that well.
No?
So I don't know the words or something like that. You know, Vance, now he would change, if you remember.
Yes.
Vance would read the teleprompter, but he wouldn't read the teleprompter, he would destroy it. He would just start talking, and he would change the grammars and change the verb tenses, and then he would just, and then you could tell the teleprompter didn't know what the hell to do. Where is he? Where is he? Move up, move back.
That was one of his most impressive skills. It was quite fun to watch him. All of us edit copy on the fly as it's going by the teleprompter because there's typos or there's something you feel comfortable saying or something like that. But man, Vance he could just like totally redo the whole thing, and while other words are rolling by in the teleprompter in front of him, just totally, it was fun to watch. Sometimes he would get himself in trouble, and he'd sort of back himself into a corner, and he couldn't quite get out of it, and that was very entertaining, but rarely happened, but he did keep the teleprompter operators guessing.
Well, just briefly, when you guys were together, I would be occasionally when I was on the set to watch, or when one of you make a mistake, when you fluff a word, or you fluff something, either one of you, you're off camera, you're on camera, and then Vance is over here, like a junior high school kid, looking at you. And to be fair, you would do similar things to him.
Me?
Yes. You're both guilty, right?
We
But that's
had,
part of the camaraderie that you have to build with somebody who's going to sit there.
he didn't like any of the silly things that we were asked to do sometimes. Go to our webpage if you'd like more information about such and such, or the things that he considered self-promotions, or he just hated doing those, and he would try to foist them off on me. There was one, maybe more than once, but we got to the end of the show, and we're in the commercial break, and when we come back out, we're supposed to say he was supposed to say some stupid thing like, and tomorrow we'll be, live at the ice rink or something. Anyway, whatever it was, he didn't want to say it. He said, "You take it." I'm not taking it. You take it. It doesn't say Doreen. It says Vance. Okay, I'm not doing it. So whatever. So it became a game of chicken. But it came back out to us, and we both just sat there. It went on for a little while. They were starting to get in our ears. Hey! And finally he caved. And that in that moment I earned so much respect from him. Because I wasn't afraid to just sit there and play that stupid game with him.
What's that like to have somebody, the producer, in your ear? You have a director that might say something like, they always tell me, hold the chair up, put the chair down, go move an inch to your right, all those things. But you also have them telling you what's happening, and stories are changing, and cut to aid and bringing in the pieces of paper. And they really do depend on that sometimes, because the teleprompter's not working. But it seems, what's it like to have someone talking to your ear the entire time? Because they do talk.
Yeah. It can be really distracting. You remember the movie Broadcast News and the Holly Hunter got him. It was a William Hurt here, and he just didn't know what he was doing out there, right? And she's like feeding him questions, and he ends up looking really smart. I have never had anybody do that for me. What's coming in your ear is, the live shot is dying, you gotta fill. or one of my, I remember we had, it was on election night or something, Jim Newsday, and I'm like, stand by, we've got the governor on the phone. Well, it was election night everywhere. Which governor? How? I mean, seriously. Yeah, seriously. That's the kind of stuff they tell you. But they also tell you, you know, we're dropping page 12. We're, you know, there's a lot of changes happening all the time. And, but it's can be distracting, but usually it's helpful.
You did start when they actually said film at 11. How many people remember that phrase? Now it's digital.
Yeah.
Because how does that, when you do the stories, the producer, of course, helps do a lot of the work with you. But what's it like to be in the digital world, put stories together? Are you more liberated to have more choices? But you have to, it's easier to edit? Does it make any difference at all?
Doesn't really make that much difference to me.
Because you have good
I can see that because I get to work with the producer. Unlike you guys, you're putting your own stuff together. I mean, I can go out on the stories, but and be involved in the writing of them. And sometimes, and I enjoy it. And I like to write whenever I can, and certainly get to edit copy, but not usually.
How are we doing on questions? We're almost out of time here, ladies and gentlemen. Do you have any closing statements that you want
Oh.
candidate for?
No, thank you for having me.
It's well, thanks for coming. I think it's good that you've seen a person here that now when you see her on the news and there's a fluff up or something, you'll say, oh, she told me about how that works. That's good.
And we all know that they're going to be watching your stories a little differently now that
Well,
be a little loose with the facts.
they don't matter. I will tell you just one brief story. I saved it to the end because Doreen started a million times. She does a lot of good work with people, including the theater lab here in town, where she and Jim Vance work with some I support. But when I worked at the Post, she and I came the same year, 1989, at Channel 4. I had been talking to the station about coming over because I had covered Barry.
You've never heard this story, have you, Mark?
Yeah. These people have not heard this. All right, who's heard this story?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll tell it faster. And you can start backing up if you like. So Pat Collins calls me up in the middle of the summer, and I hadn't agreed to come over yet. He said, Sherwood, we've got a new anchor, and she's not a bimbo. And I didn't have the best opinion of television. And it turned out, of course, to be Doreen, and I'm just very proud to say you're nowhere near. Coming a little bit later. She'll be on the air at 11 o'clock if you want to tune in, or you can watch it on the TV. Or
Yeah, please tune in, visit us on Facebook,
Instagram.
we need all the, we're all being measured now, by the way. That's one way that the business has changed. Our bosses get reports on, how we're doing on social media. So Vance never bought into any of it. He didn't have to, but the rest of us.
Thanks, everyone.